Welcome back, everyone. We're here. We're like almost at the end, which I don't say in a, I feel like I'm saying in a celebratory, it's sort of like an accomplishment, but also like sad that we're almost at the end, but we are here. I think, give yourselves a round of applause for getting here. We overcame COVID, we overcame pandemic, we got to this point. I think that's worth celebrating. So thank you for coming back for our final explorations of the cities of the Americas. For this final session, we've got some great chef demos, but also we've got one more trip on the virtual plane, as it were. We're gonna be visiting Diego Hernández in Ensenada. Diego was born in Ensenada, and his restaurant Corazon de Tierra was on the world's 50 best Latin America list. Chef Diego is one of the new generation of Mexican chefs who are spearheading, taking historical traditions from Mexican cuisine and putting contemporary spins on it. And Chef Diego specifically has been spearheading the farm-to-table movement in the Valle de Guadalupe's wine region. So we've got a video that Diego sent ahead of time that we're gonna watch first, and then he's gonna be joining us live to chat more about the cuisine of Baja, Mexico. So let's check out his video. Oh, I see Diego. Hello, Diego.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Very good, thank you.
So first of all, so many images in this video. I was wondering if you could sort of tell us a little bit more about what we just saw and why you chose those images in this video to kind of launch this conversation.
Of course. I work very close with the fishing department of Baja, California. So these are different points of extraction where we gather all the sustainable seafood that Baja California shares with the world. Some of the last images that you saw were in the Tsukiji market in Tokyo because our primary customers for this quality of seafood is mostly Asian. So I just wanted to show that we have a very wide variety of seafood that is very well taken care of, and you can find it in restaurants or even in street carts here in Ensenada or Tijuana, and also with the same quality that you can find in the auctions in Japan.
Well, I love hearing that also because obviously seafood is an integral part of Baja cuisine and the lifestyle in Baja. But I love that the video kind of shows that when we think about regional cuisines, when we think about place, that sense of place is being extended globally, really, right? That
Exactly.
it has an international presence also, but to remind people where that originates, you know, that Japanese culture, we associate sashimi and sushi and all these things with Japanese food, but much of it is ultimately originating from another place.
Exactly. To have those kind of ingredients available for us here in town has been a work of around 20 years because all over the world they knew we had this quality. So most of the fisheries that you find in Ensenada were mostly for exporting. So local chefs and street vendors we were working very tight together with the fishing board of the government, so we can have all those products available at a fair price. So that's a reality now, and that has a lot to do with all the everything you hear about Baja cuisine and the quality of the ingredients and the good restaurants and the chefs. The truth is that 90% of that work is made either in the fields or in the ocean. So if you have really good ingredients, it's very easy to do good food.
And speaking of Baja, this is something we've discussed before, but when people come to Baja and coming into Mexico, sort of having a preconceived notion of what Mexican cuisine is or what Mexican food is and what they expect, and they come into Baja, and what you do kind of really defies those expectations of what people think they're going to have when they come to eat in Mexico. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Of course, that's very common because Mexico is a very big country and it's a country of regions. So imagine that we have 32 regions and each region has their own lifestyle, their own ingredients, their own style of cuisine, their own way of traditionally dressing and their own traditional music. So traveling in Mexico is almost like traveling between countries in Europe. It's very, the culture is very, very big. So the concept of Mexican cuisine is also something that we've been working on trying to brand it differently. And we start calling it from a few years now that Mexican cuisine doesn't really exist. What exists is regional Mexican cuisines. So the concept that we know as Mexican cuisine is just one little part of the recipe book of Mexico, which is a part of antojitos, which antojitos could be the equivalent of hors d'oeuvre in French cuisine. And antojitos really has no region. You can find it widely spread all over the country, but each region has their own cuisine. So in Baja region of Mexico, the food that we have is very influenced, of course, by the ingredients, the location, the geography, but also the culture. And we share with California this border culture. And we had a lot of migrations from people from 100 years ago until now. So all of these cultures that has been coming to Baja has been adding a little bit, not only to the lifestyle, but also to the palette of flavors of how we eat. So most of the fisheries in Ensenada are Japanese owned, now third generation Mexicans. So our fishmongers are very used to its sashimis, that instead of using wasabi, you use yellow mustard, for example. And that started shaping the palette of flavors in the area. It's very interesting.
Well, and speaking of Baja cuisine, we actually have another video from you where we get to see not just the grander scope of what's going on in Baja, but a dish that you specifically are, that you have made. So maybe let's take a look at that video, and then we'll bring you back because it's all in Spanish so that you can kind of translate for us and let us know what you were making there. So let's pull that video up.
La receta que acabamos de hacer son con los mejillones de Baja Shellfish, que son mejillones que están cultivados en aguas certificadas aquí en la Bahía de Ensenada. Para esta receta que hicimos, o le llamamos peltre de mejillones, es básicamente cebolla, ajo, le pusimos un poquito de tomate en conserva, pero también lo pueden hacer con tomate fresco o incluso con tomate ahumado, si quisieran que tuviera una nota ahumada, jengibre, vino blanco, y tapamos agua también, tapamos el peltre y lo pusimos en la leña. Cuando abrió, separamos el caldo del mejillón y agregamos en el caldo chile y un poco de cilantro blanqueado, rectificamos nada más punto de sal y esto.
Okay, that looked delicious. I am ready for that. So what were we just watching, Diego?
Okay, so that's a recipe that we did like maybe 10, 12 years ago that to me speaks a lot about the lifestyle in Baja. Here we have a lot of surf points where people go surfing. And every time you're in the beach, you can just walk a little bit into the water and harvest mussels from the rocks. So it's very common that people that is surfing just light a fire in the sand and put some mussel with seawater, cook it, and eat it with lime and chili. So that's the most common thing to do here. So I took that technique, which is basically a pot on the fire, and added flavors from a Oaxacan verde. The verde is not mole verde, but it's really like a salsa that it's called verde, that has three main ingredients, which is cilantro, epazote, and parsley. Also some green chilies, onion, and garlic. You have to blanch them and make a paste. So what we did is we put the mussels with some seawater, white wine, ginger, and cooked them. Once they were open, we added the paste with the chili and just mixed it, a few drops of lemon juice, olive oil, and that's it. So it's the same technique that you do in the beach, but we gave it some very deep roots Mexican flavors.
I love it. And we've got just about a minute left here, but I wanted to have you touch upon, you take a seasonal approach to your cooking, but you also take what you call a sort of temporal approach in terms of using ingredients not only that are in season, but adapting to how long they've been, from when they've been harvested, and capitalizing on their unique qualities given based on that sort of passage of time. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, Corazón de Tierra is 10 years old. Right now we're moving to a different property, but we are known because we have a vegetable garden, almost like half an hectare of vegetables for a 25-seat restaurant. So we harvest the food every day to do our tasting menus. So we chefs know about temporality, but I mean about seasonality. But when you work with a specific ingredient, when it's in season, it also changes through the season. So that made us change the menu often. So for example, when the tomato season is by the end of the summer, So the first tomatoes have a very thin skin and a lot of water. That tomato is good to juice, for pressing, to maybe just slice, something like that. As the season goes on, the skin gets a little bit thicker and the tomato gets more meaty. So that tomato we use like to pan fry it or saute, or maybe just do some cooked salsas, could be. And the last tomato of the season, approaching the autumn, has a very thick skin and a lot of meat. That's also a good tomato for salads if you want the texture, or also for canning and preserving. So you can save tomato for the winter. On that recipe that you saw in the video, we were taking some preserved tomatoes out of a can, out of a glass, I mean. So that applies to every ingredient, every ingredient. We are in a wine region, so I took that example from the winemaking. That's how they treat grapes. You never see grapes in a greenhouse. So we grow everything at open field, and when it's field grown, you have access to this widespread of textures and flavors through the season. So yeah, that makes it interesting.
Absolutely. I feel like, cooking seasonally, serving seasonally, having seasonal menus has become sort of table stakes at this point. People kind of expect that. But as we sort of start to slice up those seasons and really recognize that there's more than just 4 seasons in the year, that there's sort of a constant evolution. I love that approach. Diego, I'm afraid we are out of time, but we're so glad to have you join us from Mexico. We're looking forward to when we can visit you in Baja and when you can come back up here so that we can host you in person. But thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I hope you like it. Thank you.
All right, and now for our final session, we've got a real treat for you, partially also because we have Jamila Robinson, who is joining us. Jamila wasn't able to join us for the first couple of days of the conference, but we got her for this finale. We got her in here. So I'm so thrilled to introduce her. She is the food editor at Philadelphia Inquirer, and she has vast experience with editorial and content strategy, including at Atlantic Media, USA Today Network, and the Atlanta Journal and Constitution. This has nothing to do with food, but it was in her bio, and so I had to pull it out. But she also coaches figure skating, and I just felt like everybody needed to know that. So please welcome Jamila Robinson.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. I've had a kind of a rough week, but I'm happy to be here and to be with all of you. And I'm really excited today because we're going to talk about a city that's very close to my heart, which is Washington, D.C. We're going to talk about its richly cultural dining scene. I probably should stand by the microphone. Actually, I'm going to lift that just a little bit. Like, I'm very comfortable, so we're going to have a little fun. Washington, D.C. It's such an incredible, culturally rich city. And one thing we always forget about with Washington, and people think of it, oh, it's the capital, it's the seat of government. But Washington is a city. And it's filled with neighborhoods, with incredible restaurants and an incredible restaurant scene. So I want to introduce to you 2 of the chefs that really make up Washington, D.C. without borders. Erik Bruner-Yang, who's the chef owner of Maketto, which is actually in my neighborhood, so one of my favorite restaurants in D.C. So we're going to talk a lot about Maketto and ABC Pony. And then Erik Adjepong, the chef from Chef Adjepong, and we're going to talk about how food traverses culture. So I'm going to turn it over. It's weird because you're behind me, and it's like, and I'm like, I feel like I should turn. But yeah, I want to introduce you. I don't know which Erik wants to start. But there. Okay, I'm going to toss to Erik Adjepong. It's going to be really. We're going to have fun here. Washington, D.C. has just clear concepts, and it's a place of innovation. So I would love for you to kind of talk about you're part of the city, and why you live there.
I live in DC, mostly because my wife brought me originally from New York, but like it doesn't skip a beat. Like coming from New York and seeing such a diverse land, 5 boroughs, and you have people from all walks of life. It's very much similar in DC, but I think on a more quainter kind of scale. The cities are a little bit more tighter. The communities are a little bit more tighter. And with that, you just get like a melting pot of not only so much food and culture, but spirit and liveliness and things that really make DC what it is. I think when people think of Washington, DC, obviously the first thing is the governmental work, which is obviously a huge part of the ecosystem and the atmosphere there. But I would say the backbone are the different cultures, the different pockets. The Filipino community, the Ethiopian community, the West African community, that all are thriving and making such huge strides there. So it's one that I get inspired by every single day. You mentioned Maketto being one of your favorite spots. It's one of mine. It's probably the first one I went to when I landed in DC, and still to this day, like I praise the restaurant like over and over again. So it's really cool to be a part of this atmosphere. It's really cool to be a part of food culture. The Michelin star just came as well not too long ago. And there's just so much, again, liveliness, and that all kind of translates into food.
Mm-hmm. And same for you, Erik Bruner-Yang, who, again, Maketto is one of my favorite restaurants, and it's a place that I think can only happen in DC.
Yeah, I think the description of the demo is misleading because it says new generation of chefs, and I'm like the old guy there now. But I'm originally from Taiwan, and my dad was in the Navy, so we traveled all over the world. But I landed in the DMV area, which stands for District of Columbia, Maryland, Virginia, maybe in '96. And then fully relocated to Washington, D.C. in 2007. So I've seen a lot of change in that city, especially, like in high school, we went to the few restaurants that were there for prom and homecoming and stuff like that. And then I opened my first restaurant in D.C. in 2011 when I was 25. So a lot has changed.
That's pretty cool.
A lot has changed in the last 10 years.
Yeah, it really has become a place where people used to think of Washington, D.C. as this place for steakhouses and not that exciting of a city. And then we would say, well, that means you've never really been to Washington. You've never seen the incredible Ethiopian restaurants, incredible Thai restaurants, incredible Filipino places, like really, really smart, innovative places that could only happen in a place where you have different cultures coming together.
Yeah, and I would say DC's always had these amazing cultural enclaves of food, as we've mentioned briefly. But I would say really, once Obama became president, there was when you really saw a massive influx of young, vibrant energy, people that wanted to work for the administration, a lot of young people moving into the city, and it just had this vibrancy and this kind of sense that you were in a place where you could express yourself. And that's really when you started seeing chefs like me were kind of coming up, and a lot of small business owners who you would look at DC now and be like, wow, look at these guys that have done these amazing things. It all really started around 2008, 2009, where you see a lot of the really popular DC chefs now all kind of started around that time, cooking food that meant a lot to them, that kind of ventured off from traditional cultural meals.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so excited because you're going to be actually traversing culture right here in the demonstration. And so you're both going to be taking some ingredients and showing how it moves and how the similarities of ingredients can be found in different cultures. Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk about the dishes you're going to be making? You're both going to be including crispy pork.
Yes. Mine is pretty much straightforward. I've been inspired a lot recently, I guess in the past few years, by where I come from. I'm first generation Ghanaian American, and my folks came to the States in the late 80s. So I'm the first person born here, in my family at least, here in the States. And that brings a lot of, obviously, inspiration. I was mentioning yesterday, I don't think, I do know, if it wasn't for culinary arts, if it was another medium, let's say fashion, or if I was a painter, that culture would have came out some way. So the fact that I landed in this amazing industry, I almost feel like I owe it to myself and I owe it to my lineage to scream from the highest mountaintops about these ingredients and the use of those ingredients and how we can kind of not only pay homage to the tradition of Ghanaian food and food of the diaspora, but how can we move forward as well in contemporary ways. So I really wanted to kind of highlight the things that are grown locally in Ghana, but then also you might see in pockets of DC as well. So habanero, we have a crispy pork, as you mentioned, Jamila. We're also serving that up with a sweet basil habanero sauce. Habaneros are indigenous to Ghana, West Africa. So it gives you a little bit of heat, lets you know where you're coming from, lets you know what you're eating. And then we kind of cool that down with a nice pickled ginger aioli. So again, just kind of highlighting those ingredients that I know and love, things that I've seen my mom use constantly, but maybe kind of just using it in a different way, in different forms. And I think Chef Erik is very similar to that as well, where he takes ingredients from his homeland and you know, where he came from, and tries to highlight them, and does a really good job, I might say as well, of highlighting them in a really smart, innovative way, but still not kind of going over your bridges, you know what I mean? He knows exactly what he's cooking, and it's very earnest. And I think right there, when you can kind of hit that pocket, then you as a chef can elevate in so many different ways. And I think that's why Maketto has done so well in DC. So yeah, that's what I'm working on. He's got a lot more stuff and looks a lot more different.
Yeah. I brought a lot of stuff that wasn't even on my list for the demo, because I think, you know, you and I have known each other for the last couple years, and you really see this kind of conversation that's been happening about the diaspora of African culture and Asian culture. And when I found out that we were doing this demo together, you know, one was like, well, let's show that. Let's show that in this demo. People hear it a lot, and we chefs like you talk about it a lot, and chefs like me talking about it a lot. How you know, because of the spice trade and slavery and everything that happened, but what's come out of it is this mix of spices that both of our cultures share together.
Definitely.
And so I really wanted to bring some of that stuff, and every time I come to this area, I love to go to Chinatown and buy spices. So I bought a bunch of spices. They're not in my recipe. I'm going to end up using it today.
Yeah.
And also to show that I can, you know, we can take a little bit of here and put it here and really just show what we mean when these things have cross-pollinated together.
Absolutely, yeah, well said. I mean, we look at some of the ingredients that Chef Erik has on his side. I see sour anise. I see some more aromatics over there. A lot of that was used, you know, to kind of like to marinate with the pork with. So we have this pork has been sitting in a brine, so to speak, with salt, a little bit of fennel, coriander, star anise, and really just giving you those warm aromatic flavors. So things that are easily work well with a dish that I'm making, and obviously that dish that Chef Erik's making as well.
Yeah, and also he can prep all the meat for me.
That's really what the issue was.
Yeah, I spent more time this week cooking other people's scraps than working on any of my own stuff. And any of the students up here could attest to that.
Well, I love that you all are going to riff on each other's ingredients, and that Chef Erik Bruner-Yang, you're adding some more ingredients. The dishes say crispy pork with quail eggs, and then crispy pork with sweet habanero. So
let's do it.
Let's
Yeah,
do it.
Go for
yeah.
it.
I'll go for it. Do you want to? Which side do you want to go?
I'm whatever.
What have you been eyeing? Yeah,
You
tell me.
cook it, and then I'm going to take it.
Say no more. All right.
Or, I mean, I could cook it for you if you want me to.
Really simple. So we have this pork belly that's been, I'll kind of go through the process. So we got it, and it's pretty much a 4-day process where the first 2 days we just try to dry it out as much as possible, that skin, right? Try to get a little bit of, or wick a lot of that moisture off. So what we do is score it, and then we just kind of use some rock salt to kind of absorb some of that moisture. And then we kind of just sit it in the refrigerator and let it just air dry as best as possible. Again, we brine it with that salt, spices with salt, fennel, coriander, and a little bit of star anise. So it has those warm, aromatic kind of back notes to it, which is really nice. Scoring it is really important as well, because once we do today, it's about a 3-hour process to cook, really slow and low, about 250 degrees, and we just let that thing just roast. So not only is the fat and collagen melting really beautifully, but that skin is getting nice and tight as well. So really the last and final step
You want me to do this for you?
If you don't mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I don't want to be
The
useless.
last and final step, my beautiful assistant here, Chef.
Yep.
I'll be your sous chef. How about that?
I'm the sous right
All right,
now,
whatever.
yeah.
It's really, we're just kind of basting it with oil. We want to get that skin as crispy as possible. So we have a little bit of frying oil. Canola oil works beautifully as well. And with a few kind of ladles, yeah, we might need to put that up. With a few ladles, crank it up. You'll start to notice that the skin gets a lot tighter, it starts to bubble, and it really gives you that beautiful, crispy, mouth-watering texture that I love. And when it comes to pork belly, that combination of crispy skin versus that really beautiful, tender meat, right underneath that, it's like a home run to me. So yeah, this is kind of the final step in that. We just kind of have.
We're gonna get the oil hot.
We're waiting for the oil
Step
to get
one.
hot. Step one, yes. But yeah, once we kind of do that, it's really go time, and deliciousness is our head.
You know, this is a very similar Chinese cooking technique.
Yeah.
Where you would heat up all the oil in the wok, and then you would do something similar like this. This is actually really great. This is actually how we would, Chinese culture, prepare a crispy pork belly as well.
Mm-hmm.
We would baste it with the oil to get the skin really clean,
Yep.
and then do all of the other applications, and then come back and do the crispy pork. But also, this would be a way that we would cook fish, where we wouldn't pre-cook any of the fish. We put the raw
That's a very
fillet
good
of
point.
fish here and
Yep.
just lightly baste it in the oil until the meat's about medium rare medium, and that's
Exactly
how we kind of poach fish in Chinese cooking.
We did a very similar thing. I opened up a restaurant last year in Ghana, Accra, called East End Bistro, and one of the dishes is a shrimp escabeche. And really what it is just a pickled, fish escabeche. It's really just a pickled sauce that goes along with a beautiful fried snapper. And to those points, you can kind of see that bubbling right now. And really, I can just watch this all day. Like, that's
Yeah.
just, it's
Oh,
so...
wait. Everyone be really quiet. We're about to
It's
do,
like Zen moment, right?
we're about
Yeah.
to do an ASMR video.
That's right. That's so beautiful.
Isn't it?
It's so exciting because I'm thinking, well, will that also work with duck or?
Anything.
Yeah, so you can see
any
peking
kind of
duck with that.
protein. That's really exciting, and I think I'm going to be going home and trying this in my own kitchen.
And again, to Chef Erik's point, like, this is not just a pork-only kind of application or technique that you can do. You know, when there was a restaurant called XIII in Washington, D.C., kind of bringing it back to D.C., where I was executive sous chef at, and we did this same dish with fried snapper as well. So very similar to your explanation, we had the snapper right on a grate, and you can just see it looks like. This is better than Netflix to me. Like,
Yeah.
This is so good.
This is what they call food porn.
Yeah, it really is. It really, really is. But yeah, duck, pork belly, when done right? And really the techniques are the same. You want to make sure that that skin is nice and dry so it can really absorb that oil and take in that oil bath, so to speak.
When I first poured the oil on it, we were like, shit, I did it wrong.
No, I wasn't. I trust you, man. Come on. Actually, no, I was really worried. Get it together. No.
I actually have a funny story while I do this slowly. And the last time I did Worlds of Flavor, I was here with Chef Kwame,
Nice.
and we were young, and we rented a Mustang. And drove from San Fran to here, thinking we were really cool. And that was the year that you got the call to be on Top Chef.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I was in the car with him when
You decided to share this story now in front of her?
Well, I'm just saying that's the first time I had learned about you.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, man, I mean, that was a great time. Chef Kwame Onwachi he opened XIII, and I was there to help along as well.
So it's very full circle.
It's a full circle moment. Yeah. It really is cool.
And XIII was a very special restaurant with celebratory foods of the African diaspora, the escabeche fish,
Yep.
and some of those dishes, the jollof, and things that we think about as part of the African diaspora, this very celebratory experience. And there really, again, at XIII was another restaurant like Maketto
Yeah.
that really could only happen in DC because
Only
of this
DC, correct.
amalgamation of culture.
Absolutely. I mean, when we opened doors, not only were we excited, it's such a rush to open up a restaurant, but we had to stop and pause and really realize, like, this is a pretty, like, monumental moment that we get to be a part of the look at that.
Yeah.
We get to be a part of, like, the lexicon of DC food and the restaurant scene. And it's been like a huge honor, not only to work with chefs like Chef Kwame, but Chef Erik as well. And it's a family, I'd say. Like the DC chef scene is really, really tight. We all saw each other at the Ramsey Nominations Award. Like periodically, it's every other month or so, we're all catching up, sharing ideas, sharing victories, sharing failures, and really just enjoying each other's company and skill.
Okay, I did it. So dangerous.
It is, yes, by the way. Try this at home, but just be cautious. Don't try this at home.
There you go, chef.
Awesome, beautiful. I don't know which one to pick. They both look delicious.
Use whatever one. I'm going to end up butchering the crap out of it. So
all right, I'll get the nice clean piece then. How about that? So for me, once the skin is kind of crisp, it's, this is the 5% or the 90 or the 100% of the job that's done. Like, again, a lot of it was done in the oven, really, really low and slow. But I like to kind of flip it over, skin side down, and you can kind of create any size portion that you want, right there. We'll go ahead and grab some of that beautiful sweet basil habanero sauce, and you can get fancy plating-wise, right? Kind of land yourself right there. Get some of that ginger aioli. Put a pop there, put a pop over here, maybe one right here. And then I have some really beautiful plantain chips, just to kind of accent the crunch from the skin. Give you something else to kind of chew on. And then we have a little bit of garnish, a little garnish flour. Again, just to make the plate look more and more attractive. And that's something I would probably serve you in Washington, D.C.
All right. It's beautiful.
That's it?
That's it, bro. I can be your soup, man. What do you need?
I gotta cook down this palm sugar. You guys use palm sugar?
Absolutely, yeah. Palm sugar is definitely used in a lot of applications, especially for like a brown stewing, for a lot of the stewing. So we'll do short ribs that gets braised in palm sugar. So we'll start off with palm sugar, get it really nice and dark, right? Start it off, and then we'll like deglaze it with maybe some cane vinegar or another kind of vinegar, just to kind of offset that flavor and really just build from there. Stocks, any sort of condiments that you really want to kind of add some body, and then you can dump short ribs, you can braise oxtails, you can braise anything that really just takes, pork belly, anything that's like low and slow. But yeah, that base for palm sugar, exactly what he's doing right now, is kind of getting it going. Yep.
So we're gonna warm up this palm sugar. I'm making a dish called khao. It is, that language is it's a Cambodian dish. My wife is from Cambodia. But this dish also a similar dish in Vietnamese culture and also Chinese culture, where it would be a stewed pork belly with hard-boiled eggs and kind of like a sweetened soy sauce type stew. And today, how we're gonna do it is kind of like a cast iron style. So we'll make the sauce in the cast iron. I'm gonna take a couple of this pork belly that we've already warmed up, put it in here, pop a bunch of eggs in it, throw it in the oven, and that's pretty...
Sounds very shakshuka.
Yes,
yeah.
I was really going for kind of wanting to explore combining a bunch of different versions of one dish.
Yep.
Because you do see that similarly where you think one dish is like uniquely your culture, and then you're like, oh, there's something similar here, there's something similar there. So that's kind of where we're at.
Yep.
In the recipe, I don't have any of the spices in it, but I brought the spices, so I'm gonna throw in a couple of pieces while the sugar's warming into it.
So what are some of the spices that I'm seeing? Some cloves, I'm seeing some star anise.
Yeah, I got star anise, I have clove. This is black cardamom, or Chinese style cardamom. This one's really blown a lot of the minds of the students here. This is Chinese cinnamon. When our recipes call for cinnamon, we kind of use this bark And it's a little bit less sweet, and it gives a really nice robustness to it. All right, I'm gonna turn this down a little bit. I've actually haven't done this yet, and or tried it before.
We're in for a treat.
Yeah, or not.
Or not, who knows? No, I'm sure. But you raise a good point. The base and the use of these like warm ingredients. I love to call them warm ingredients because
smell like
warm
Christmas
spices.
in here,
Yeah, it smells like Christmas, right? In Ghanaian culture and a lot of throughout the diaspora, clove and nutmeg and star anise and cinnamon as well. Not as exotic and beautiful as that, but that's all used in so many cool ways. So I love the fact that we're really crossing paths right here. Are you deglazing?
I'm
There you
just
go.
gonna use a little water while just to get the process going a little bit. I actually probably have enough palm sugar in here, so I'm gonna take some out. And then we're gonna add some shallots, some garlic. Okay. And then I'm gonna take your pork belly here. I'm gonna take a lot. No one wants that small piece. But people are supposed to be trying this afterwards, right?
I agree. Yeah.
Okay. All right,
just
so we'll
put
take
this-
a couple cubes.
It smells so good. It's just, I love that. That's it.
Here like this. We're gonna add some soy sauce.
So you're layering flavors. I love it. Like you're starting off again with the sugar, those warm spices, those beautiful aromatics. Let me go ahead and walk you through it, right?
Yeah, you're near it. I like it.
And then it's the alliums, right? The really beautiful ginger. Excuse me, the shallots, the garlic that you add in there. So and this is a perfect example of how to like really master your techniques as far as cooking. You never want to kind of dump everything in all at once, right? You really want to allow everything to kind of have its own space to breathe and really kind of bloom within the dish. And I think Chef Erik is doing this beautifully. So I'm not sure what you're worried about, man. Like that looks...
You're doing a really great job. I feel like I'm like on the Netflix chef show. And I can be quiet and brooding, and you can talk about...
I've been at a lot of practice now. So yeah. It's been a lot of practice for me.
All right, so we're salty, we're sweet. We did tamari. I prefer to use tamari when I do my cooking. I feel like that has a little bit more control of the overall kind of savoriness of the dish, where I can add different components if I want to. I added a couple chunks of white pepper just now. I will just add a touch of seasoning because that's just a little bit as we go. And then, so the sauce is pretty much done. The pork belly is already cooked. And
May I?
some very thoughtful student opened all these quail eggs for me, so thank you.
You had somebody do that for you?
They wanted to. They were like, we want to do this. So we're just gonna throw all these eggs in.
That's awesome.
All right. This would instantly just turn into like a $40 dish. $40 breakfast.
44?
Yeah. But this was a dish that's very comforting to me
48.
when I would visit my grandfather in Taiwan. And every time he would always have steamed pork belly and hard-boiled eggs soaked in soy sauce ready for every time that we got back.
That's amazing.
To visit. And then this is also a similar dish when we go visit the monks at the Cambodian temple in Silver Spring, Maryland. My wife's mother always makes something like this with the stewed pork belly as kind of like her signature home style dish that we offer to the monks to say thank you.
That's beautiful.
Okay, that's it. I'm gonna throw it in the oven, nice and warm. We'll just get the eggs a little bit cooked. And one thing I love about Cambodian culture is everything is eaten with just a giant bowl of delicious vegetables, right? So we have everything here was grown in the garden of the school. And we have lettuce and herbs and peppers and radishes and green tomatoes, which is funny because I brought home red tomatoes once.
Yeah.
And my wife's mom was like, "What is a red tomato?" And I was like, "It's a tomato that is ripe and
It's
now
ripe,
ready
right.
to eat." She goes, No, that's no good. It has to be green. She's like, we can do nothing with the red tomato. And I'm like, you can do so much with the red tomato.
That's another thing about DC culture as
she's
well.
like,
Like
no,
moms don't care about your chef status. Like they'll let you know what to cook. That's
So I made a plate like this with red tomatoes, and she's like, no, that's not how we do it. So anyways, green tomatoes, since we're honoring culture today. Okay? And then I found some bread upstairs. I don't know who it belongs to, but I took it off their cart because the day's over, so...
I love that.
And
That's beautiful bread.
all right, so then we'll have some bread too, because we are cooking some eggs.
Nice.
And then no meal is complete without rice. So we have our rice.
Let me ask you, how often, or if you really could eat rice every day, do you think you could do it?
I have to because my wife is the person that has to have rice every day.
Yeah.
So I think like she was really quite surprised in Taiwanese culture, rice is like not a component of every meal. It is like there's a time and a period for rice with a particular only dish or time. So we were, when we first met, we went to Cambodia, I took her to Taiwan, and we were going to all these restaurants, and she was being really polite. And then at the end of the day, we probably went to 3-4 different places, and she was like, "What's wrong with your people? Why are we eating rice?" And I was like, "Oh, it's not rice time. Rice time is later. We can go get rice dishes if you want." She goes, "What?" And then when I went to Cambodia, I was dying. Everywhere we went, her family would bring a rice cooker.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
With the rice already cooked.
Yes.
We would go to a restaurant.
That doesn't sound far-fetched to me.
Yeah,
No.
we would go to a restaurant,
No.
and we would be like, "Why don't we just order rice?" She was like, "No.
We have rice.
Yeah, they charge you." They're like, "But they don't charge you if you bring your own rice." So that's
I love
That is hilarious.
that's love right there.
No, I mean, it's so true. Like, I've seen 25 rice cookers in my lifetime, just in my home. Like, rice is always on the pot. And I think that's another cool thing about DC as well. Like, so many cool rice dishes and just celebrations of, like, such a humble ingredient. But I can eat rice if asked. I can do it every day.
That's like my favorite icebreaker is to find out how people's families cook rice.
Yes, yeah.
It's such an interesting way to understand their culture, their sensibilities,
Yep.
Yeah.
their generation, is to find out how they cook rice. So you're going to be plating.
I'm done.
Oh, you're done. Oh my God. I missed it. I was talking and I missed it. My goodness.
Not bad, bro.
Yeah, I'm done. Chopped champion.
Crispy pork with quail eggs, and then crispy pork belly with sweet green habanero sauce. That's amazing. 2 dishes that have shown how they traverse cultures, how they traverse identity, how they traverse cities and neighborhoods. How is it?
Good.
We're a little jealous.
I'm just joking. It's good.
We have a couple of more minutes, so if anybody has questions, we can toss to questions if anybody wants to. Okay. Oh, go for it.
If you were going to use a fish instead of the pork belly, what type of fish would you suggest?
I go snapper. I like
Yeah.
red snapper. I think red snapper, the flesh of this itself it's so sturdy, I guess is the best way to say it, that it holds really, really well. It can take a beating, right? And it's really, really, really hard to overcook it. So it's perfect for an application just like this, where you have to continuously baste over and over again, and catch like every nook and cranny and every crevice. So I am a big fan of red
And the
snapper.
scales get crispy.
And the
you can
scales
eat
get
it.
crispy, and you can
Yeah.
also eat them as well. So yeah, that's another great point.
That's a good
Yep.
idea. Leave the scales on.
Leave the scales on,
Scales on
exactly.
for red snapper.
Yep.
Yeah, and they kind of like puff. They like open up, kind of like a.
It's
like a
super
airplane.
beautiful. Yeah, it's a very
propeller.
very similar to how like this was very Netflixy. Watching like a snapper kind of being fried in that same like regard is like, again, I'm there, season 2, episode 4, watching it.
Oh, cool. Any like white flaky fish, right? Because the idea is same with the pork belly. If the oil's really hot, you're only going to do it a minute or 2, and then the protein is done. So you don't want to be stuck doing like a swordfish or something where you're really having to do it for a long time,
Right.
and the meat would get. It's just anything that's like a quick flash fry cook.
Mm-hmm.
You
I would say possibly avoid anything with very oily skin, right? Maybe a salmon probably wouldn't work as well. Yeah.
Other question, please.
The whole idea would all of it should be dry. Yeah, the whole protein should just be dry.
So the idea behind the salt is really not just, it's again, to reach that goal, right? It's really finding different ways and ingredients to kind of help you reach that goal. So you're trying to dry out the skin as much as possible. Salt's obviously going to be the best thing to help you with that. So yeah, if you're doing that, I tend to just kind of pat dry it super, super well, just because it's not as porous as like a pork belly skin, especially if it's scored. So yeah, I would definitely just go ahead, pat dry it super well, season it the way you want to, air dry it, as long as possible, at least a day, and then go ahead and just go. It's so pretty.
Well,
I don't know whose flowers those are either, but
Just taking
they
stuff from
ended
people's
up-
cards.
flowers. Well, thank you. This is so beautiful. We can't wait to try that. Thank you, Chef Erik Adjepong and Chef Erik Bruner-Yang, the chef owner of Maketto and ABC Pony, the creator of Power of 10 initiatives in Washington, D.C. Thank you all for being here and for sharing in this traverse of culture and a trip through our neighborhoods in Washington, D.C.
And thank you for.
And thank you as well.
Thank you. And you can come for a skating lesson too.
Thank you so much, Jamila. Thank you, Erik. I feel really jealous because DC is a bit of a second home for me. I went to grad school there and left just before the dining scene really blew up. I left in 2011. I had been looking for a job in food and sort of, it wasn't really coming. I was like, I gotta go back to San Francisco. That's where the food scene is. And then all this happened. So I'm super jealous. Thank you so much. Let's have another round of applause for them. So I'm sure you want to try the food. Hopefully you got to Chef Erik Bruner-Yang's crispy pork belly at yesterday's lunch, and then Erik Adjepong's crispy pork belly with sweet green habanero sauce and plantain chips and pickled ginger mayo is going to be at our lunch immediately following this session. So be sure to check it out there. A reminder also that the recipes are attached in the app. I was hearing from somebody that they were having trouble accessing the recipes in the app, but it will be emailed to you after the conference also as a full recipe packet, all of the demo recipes that we had, as well as all of the lunch items that you've been having from the sponsor booths as well, and the breaks and all the recipes. We're giving you all the recipes. You get a recipe, and you get a recipe, and you get a recipe. And please, again, do fill out the evaluation. You're going to get a link for that in your email, but also we have some QR codes posted through the building so that you can use the QR code to access that form so that we can hear what you enjoyed, what you didn't enjoy, if you have suggestions on what cuisines, what recipes, what chefs you'd like to see here also, we would love to hear that. So please, please, please do fill that out. And now we're at the end, so for some final closing remarks, I'd like to end as we began and hand it back over to Greg Drescher.
Thanks, Jackie. Wow, what an amazing final session to end up with, right? We could have gone for another hour or two with these guys. Thank you, Jackie, for that amazing hosting and stage management throughout the conference, and Open Table for making that all possible. It's a pleasure to have you back. Let's have a round of applause for our MC extraordinaire. So that brings us to the closing of our 23rd Worlds of... I was here for the first one. Anybody else here for the first Worlds of... All right. We're going to note that in your file. Fantastic. Closing of our 23rd Worlds of Flavor Conference. We have a wonderful final video for you, and then, of course, our final not-to-be-missed lunch and marketplace. But before that, I want to give you a sneak peek of our theme for next year's Worlds of Flavor Conference. and make a few thank yous. So Chad, let's see what we're doing next year. Next November, in conjunction with the fall 2002 launch of our CIA inaugural African Cuisines concentration as part of our bachelor's program, we will be hosting our 24th Worlds of Flavor Conference and Festival, again right here at Copia, Africa and the World, Crafting the Future. So next November 2nd to the 4th, don't miss this landmark gathering of top chefs, restaurateurs, and food experts as we explore food, culture, and innovation on the African continent and the impacts and flavors of the African diaspora, especially through the Americas. I hope this year's conference has sparked for you some fresh thinking, some new ideas, some gems you can take back and share with your colleagues. We hope we've inspired you, even as we are all reminded anew of all that we love about the food world and this industry. Staging this conference, I think you all get a sense of this over the last 3 days, is a massive effort, and we are grateful to all those who have made this possible. And I just want to make a few thank yous, and I think I could advance the slides myself. Our conference sponsors for their support, our platinum sponsor Kikkoman, our premium gold sponsors, Olive Oils from Spain, the wonderful company Woodstone, our gold and silver sponsors. These are all amazing companies that often have been with us for many, many years. Our bronze sponsors, our supporting sponsors, and our corporate and media sponsors. And a huge thank you to all of our chefs and presenters who've taken time away from their operations, which in many cases, they're still short of labor. It's a trying time, and to come and do just the amazing things that they've done. So let's have a huge round of applause for our chefs and sponsors. And you see some of them here, and so many great memories from this conference already. There should be a slide in here for our CIA, our culinary volunteers. So in addition to our amazing, I think some of you have met our ACAP students that have been here working with the chefs, as well as a number of chefs that have flown in from all over the United States on their own nickel to support the guest chefs that have been here for the week. So a big thank you to all those folks. And then finally to our amazing CIA staff, including the incredible strategic initiatives team that I'm privileged to lead, and the enthusiastic participation of numerous departments from our 2 campuses here in California, Copia and the Greystone campus. And a shout out to 3 outstanding leaders on our team, without whom none of this would be possible. Believe me. Christina Adamson, Senior Director of Operations, Cheryl Orm, our Director of Corporate Relations, and Tony Sakaguchi, our Executive Chef. A huge round of applause, please, for Team CIA. And now, a little something that will bring a smile to you, as we think about going home and having a little lunch before we go. So let's roll the video, Chad. So thanks, everyone. See you next year. Safe travels.
We're at Valentina's Tex-Mex Barbecue in Austin, Texas. I'm Modesty Vidal.
Miguel Vidal. This is my wonderful wife and business partner.
This is my personal chef.
Yeah.
This is Miguel's food that he grew up eating, but better.
I've worked in restaurants since I was 15 years old. I met Modesty back in 2005. We named the business after our daughter. I wanted to be able to represent, she was the baby at the time. I wanted to represent what I felt was true Tejano cooking and true Mexican-American flavors here in Texas. And what better way than to be able to have barbecue and fresh flour tortillas, right? And then everything else that comes in between there. So the business is really based off family, and everything that we do is to be able to share with people and with family. Every customer that comes in, we want to treat them like they're my aunt, uncle, brother, sister,
They probably
mom,
could be.
dad. Home-cooked food, but presented with such quality that it can stand up to any five-star restaurant. That's what we want to do. But we want to have a relaxed atmosphere where anyone can feel comfortable, put their boots up on one of the picnic tables and just kind of relax and enjoy something. What we're trying to do with the food is put some, the love and attention and detail into it, so that when you are eating the food, it can take you back to a time that it reminds you of something special. My brother has become our lead pit master now. He's been with me since the beginning, so 6 years. My sister is
Head prep cook over
she
here.
works.
runs the prep
She
kitchen,
works every
basically.
day, almost maybe 6.5 days a week.
And then she babysits our kids too.
I do have another sister that will help out from time to time. She mostly
She lives
is.
like 2 minutes away from us.
She's
so-
mostly involved with helping out with family stuff, watching our kids, or doing caterings and events. And I have 2 cousins that have worked here for 5 years plus, and they are all involved with the barbecues because even though they had very little to zero restaurant experience coming in, they know the flavor and profiles I'm trying to push out based off my family's cooking. We source our meat from Hartley Ranch, which is right outside Waco in Stephansville. And we've worked with these guys to be able to have, a never ever, which means an all natural brisket that's grass fed. We're using prime briskets. Most of their Angus cows are actually graded closer to prime. It's important to me to know how a cow is living and how what it's fed. So we use 100% mesquite wood, right? In Central Texas here, it's typical to use post oak or oak. I think it gives us a distinct flavor. I think when you're thinking about Mexican food or South Texas food, and you're thinking about asadas or grilled meats or whatever, the al carbon kind of style, you're thinking of like hot, the grill, the smoke, the fire, right? And those flavors, when we add it to our barbecue, it kind of it blends those two together, and it brings that flavor out. So those flavors you're getting from the asadas or carbones, when you do a long cook with the brisket, you're gonna have those elements there too. And that's the flavor I'm going for. So we use offset pits. We don't do reverse flow. There's like pits that are offset, but they're also reverse flow. No, we have this continuous flow going through here. We use 3/4 inch steel. This pit right here is a 36-inch barrel. The mesquite wood, we want to burn a lot and be able to have coals so it can not be over smoked and continue to burn. So I like the space in the room in there, and it does burn hot, so I don't really need to have an insulated firebox. So right now these don't have anything on them. We're gonna get ready to load them up with our brisket. We fit about 1, 2, 3 briskets here. We'll do about 21, 22 briskets on here. These are our whole chickens. They cook for about 4 hours, 3.5 to 4 hours on the chicken. When we're cooking these whole chickens, we're gonna look for a crust to start developing again. And you're gonna see some of the juices are naturally coming out. These should be pushed over actually just a little bit more. They're a little bit too tight, too close to each other. But we're gonna know that the chicken is ready in about 1.5 hours or so, just by taking the tail, okay? I'm gonna put slight pressure, and if it starts to pop off, we're gonna pull it. So this is the dry rub for the brisket. The beef ribs will take this on too. beef ribs and brisket will kind of basically have this combination right here. When we do pork is super heavy on just a dry rub. And then we add more salt to it, and then once the pork gets wrapped, it's gonna hit brown sugar, so you get a little sweetness to it. Here you're looking at a Packer brisket. These are from Hartley Ranch. They're 100% grass-fed Black Angus beef. Here, what we do is we're gonna look at this brisket. So like we were talking about earlier, when I was using my hand, showing you what the brisket looks like. So this is what I'm talking about, right? Flat, point, the deco right in here. You have the fat. This fat's never gonna really render out as much, but I also might trim out a little bit more than most people. So I'm going for some aesthetics and stuff too, right here. Now this fat will just kind of sit inside the brisket and never render out, so I'm gonna clean some of this out. And as I'm creating my cuts here, I'm gonna start creating the line to be able to have a 1/4 inch thick. We're gonna look for about a 1/4 inch right here, and go about 1/2 inch on the fat side.
We just ate it.
This is from the deco without the bottom part. This is, in my opinion,
Yes,
like
just the
the
top.
2 best pieces of brisket that you can get.
Fresh press.
Yeah.
Should we just like?
This is our answer. This is our answer to white bread.
It's a good answer.
In the barbecue, you know.
It's very hard to answer back.
In the barbecue. Yeah. This can be eaten just like this and stand on its own. That's my goal. White bread, meat, tortilla.
Yeah,
That's my.
but it's a good tortilla
Yeah.
and really good meat, you know, right?
And so then these elements here, right, when we pair together, are to just kind of enhance the flavors and work well together and balance each other out, not to mask. This is what we normally serve sausage with. We take our mesquite, we make a habanero mustard here. So we take our mesquite smoked barbecue sauce. We smoke our barbecue sauce for like 6 hours. So it's very easy. It's ketchup, vinegar, Worcestershire.
You make the sauce first and then you smoke it, so
we
you
smoke
like
it.
cold smoke it?
Yeah, it'll go about 6 hours. So what we're looking at right here, look at the nice little 1/4 inch of the fat. So all the love goes in before trimming, right?
Yep.
To kind of create this nice consistency here through each slice. So this is my opinion, right? Off the deck with some of the best slices that you'll get, even if you want to call burnt ends or whatever. But this stuff usually we mix and chop in our tacos, so it has some bark in the tacos.
And this is just what's left from the meat that you kind of dug from in between the 2 pieces,
Right.
right?
Wake up your taste buds with this breakfast flatbread featuring diced smoked ham, eggs, potatoes, and cheddar. First, preheat your oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. In a large non-stick skillet, heat the olive oil over medium heat. Add the ham and cook until the fat is rendered and the ham is crisp. It should take about 8 minutes. Remove the crispy ham onto a paper towel-lined plate. Next, add the onions to the pan. Season with salt and pepper, and cook until very soft, about 10 minutes. Add the garlic and cook until just starting to brown. Deglaze the pan with a little water, then add the tomatoes and oregano. Cook until fragrant, about 2 minutes. Now we can get started on our flatbread. Brush the flatbread dough with some olive oil, and then spread it with the onion mixture. Sprinkle with most of the cooked ham and pepper jack, and spoon the ricotta in large dollops over the surface. Scatter the roasted potatoes over the flatbread. Top with the rest of the ham. Crack the eggs onto the flatbread so they're spaced evenly. Then, place the flatbread in the oven and bake for about 8 minutes. Broil the flatbread for 2 minutes until the edges are crisp, the cheese is melted and lightly browned, and the eggs are cooked. Season with salt and pepper. Cut the flatbread into 4 pieces and scatter the torn basil leaves and chives over the top, and serve immediately. So there you have it, our delicious breakfast flatbread featuring savory smoked ham, eggs, potatoes, and cheddar. Enjoy! Find this recipe and many more at ciaprochef.com/ham. The Culinary Institute of America at Copia, in collaboration with Butter of Europe, is pleased to bring you Baking and Pastry Excellence, a free online educational series featuring the best in world baking and pastry. Today, we'll visit the Michelin 3-star Atelier Cren in San Francisco. Pastry chef Juan Contreras shows us the secrets in making his apple pâte à choux with candied pecans and caramel. Chef Contreras uses French butter to make his classic apple pâte à choux.
My name is Juan Contreras. I'm the pastry chef at Atelier Cren in San Francisco. Today we made the apple pâte à choux. Take a classic pastry, which is the pâte à choux, which is just your classic dough that you can bake and fill with cheese or cream, like a cream puff or a gougere. In this case, we wanted to make it look like an apple and kind of have those reminiscent tonalities and flavor profiles of caramel apple as well. To make the pâte à choux dough, we take water, milk, sea salt, oil, butter from Europe, bring it up to temperature, bring it up to a simmer. We add the flour mixture and then keep mixing the flour so that it gets absorbed into the liquid. Keep stirring until we basically quote unquote dry out the dough, and you'll see that by kind of the flour, the dough mixture sticking to the bottom of the pan, get some of that residual crust on it, a little bit of a crust. As soon as you see that, we dump it into the stand mixer and cool it down just around 50 Celsius. So once it comes around 50 Celsius, we start to incorporate the eggs. The eggs here, we basically just buzz them with a hand immersion blender, makes it a little more streamlined to actually incorporate the eggs until they're fully incorporated into the dough. Put the dough into a piping bag. We have half demi-sphere molds, and we'll pipe the dough all until we use the entire batter. Remove some of the dimples, the indentions from the piping to kind of get it as flat as possible, and then freeze the molds until the batter is frozen. The crackling dough is also using the butter of Europe. It's a simple mixture of butter, flour, and sugar, almost basically around equal parts, so a good amount of butter. The dough is made and just mixing it together with a little bit of green food coloring. You freeze it and then punch it out. Remove your frozen pâte à choux dough that's been molded in the half demi-sphere. Put it on your sheet pan with a silicone, and then the round crackling dough, we put a little hat on top of it and then put it straight in the oven at 200 Celsius. And then after 15 minutes, we'll lower the oven to about 150 Celsius for an extra 30 minutes just to dry out. So once it's cool, use a serrated knife to cut them at a perfectly straight edge angle so that you can expose the inside. So for the plating, we take the pâte à choux that's been cut. We insert a tiny little apple stem that's made out of chocolate. We put it on top. In the inside of the cavity, we put a little bit of salted caramel that we make. It's just a caramel sauce. We put some apple compote, which is just a compote that we make with Fuji apples and Granny Smith apples, raw apple dices in there. And the raw apple is just apple that's been peeled and diced, and it's there for freshness and texture. Pecan praline, we pipe that in there as well. Pipe a little bit of the pecan ice cream. And then we take the whipped ganache, pipe some of that around the perimeter of the choux. Finish it off with a little bit more pecan praline, some salt. We also garnish the sides around with toasted pecans and some candied apple, and top it off with its hat, the little top of the choux, and the stem. What I like about this dish is that it's very playful, and very nostalgic. People, when they eat it, they recognize those flavors right away. Nuts, caramel, apple, and it's a visual cue that it also tastes what it looks like.
Watch more baking and pastry videos at ciaprochef.com/butter.
Hi, I'm Andrew Hunter, chef for Kikkoman Sales USA. Today we're going to make a plant-based beet poke plate. Poke simply means to cut crosswise. So we're going to cut multicolored beets crosswise, and we're going to shingle them on a plate with blood oranges, crispy shiitake mushrooms, of course, Kikkoman poke sauce ready to use, and then we're just going to microplane some macadamia nuts on top. The base of our poke is 3 types of beets. Here I have roasted and peeled ruby, golden, and Chioggia beets that I've cut into 1/4-inch slices using a mandolin. For the orange slices, cut the peeled oranges crosswise in 1/4-inch circles, removing any seeds you might find. Next, we'll prepare our crispy shiitake mushrooms. I've sliced the shiitake caps as thinly as possible. Heat a non-stick skillet over medium-high heat and drizzle with Kikkoman toasted sesame oil, heating until it smokes. Add the sliced shiitakes and saute until they are caramelized and crispy. Shingle beets and orange slices, alternating with different colors. Drizzle poke sauce across the top of the beets and oranges and scatter with crispy shiitake mushrooms and tarragon leaves. Finish the plate with macadamia dust and orange zest from a microplane. So here you have a delicious plant-based beet poke plate. I hope you enjoy.
Hi, I'm Tony Roberts. I'm the pastry chef at the Ritz-Carlton Chicago. Today we're celebrating the worlds of flavor with the perfect puree of Napa Valley. So we're going to start the day in Montreal for breakfast with black pepper ham and Emmental crepes with the perfect puree peach ginger blend and maple sauce. And then we're going to follow up with the butter. I'm going to switch to a whisk here. And just get the butter in and just whisk until the butter is melted in. And Emmental cheese and ham, we're going to give it a fold, give it another fold. So we're just going to pour this right over the top. And then to finish, some fresh black pepper and some chopped herbs. Today I have some chive, and there you go. A beautiful brunch or breakfast dish. Next up on our culinary journey, we're stopping in Mexico City for vegetarian cauliflower tacos with a peach ginger slaw. We are going to add our peach ginger blend. So here we have our coleslaw, everything's in. We have our peach ginger blend, it smells so good. Some white vinegar, fresh lime juice, and some toasted chopped pepitas. So we're just gonna take our plate here. I have our warm corn tortillas. I'm gonna do a little bit of the spicy mayo, a few crispy fried onions, and there you have it. Roasted cauliflower tacos with the peach ginger slaw. So we're finishing our day with some sweets in Sao Paulo. And go ahead and blend it smooth. So here we have our brigadeiro mixture. And then from here, just use a little ice cream scoop, or you can use a spoon or something else. And you're just going to make little balls, pop them out, and then in your hands, roll them nicely into a little ball. And here I have some yellow nonpareil sprinkles and some orange to celebrate the peach ginger colors. And we're just going to take our little ball, roll it in here, cover it in the sprinkles. And then these just get placed in bonbon cups, ready for your guests. I've had so much fun on this culinary journey with the perfect puree of Napa Valley. We began our day in Montreal, where we made black pepper ham and Emmental crepes with a peach ginger sauce. Next up, we headed to Mexico City to prepare vegetarian roasted cauliflower tacos with a peach ginger slaw. Then we ended our day with sweets in Sao Paulo with peach ginger brigadeiros. Again, all of these recipes can be found at www.perfectpuree.com/WOF. While you're there, remember to check out our complimentary sample program and try all of the flavors for yourself. Enjoy!